What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here with your Packers Daily Chat live on Cheesehead TV, wherever you are on the internet. That's where we want to be because we're devoted to you, Green Bay Packers fans worldwide. How is everybody on this Wednesday afternoon? Somewhat quiet on the Packers front, I would say, comparative to the rest of the league and or the world, but that doesn't mean there isn't stuff to talk about. Luke Getsy is back. Milt Hendrickson is in the front office. There's always stuff to talk about, as is apparent here on the chat. Katie starting us off with a really good question. Any news on Rodgers' knee or concussion? Well, you have to think a concussion is at least under control somewhat. We've got documented evidence of Aaron out and about. As far as the knee goes, I would think we'll hear something about some kind of cleanup procedure that he had been hinting at for the last couple months. I would suspect Rob Demovsky will probably have that info. Rob always gets the medical info before everybody else, and once something happens in that area, I think he'll get it out there. But as of right now, there's no reports of Rodgers having anything done to the knee. But I think that's only a matter of time. Nagler is my dad. Well, I'm sure my daughters will be excited that they have a brother. Schedule of the London game. Well, Christopher, it's not going to happen this year, as we know. Everything was announced, and they are not doing London this year. Sorry, computer's acting up, not having fun. Deshaun Jackson, thoughts on him in Green Bay? I love the idea of a guy who can really take the top off. I don't think it's entirely necessary, so to speak, but I think it'd be fun to watch him and Rodgers play together. Now, that said, we'll see if he, A, actually hits the market. I know he wants to. And B, how, I guess, involved and or interested the Packers will be in bringing him in. Obviously, last year they were at least in the conversation for a number of receivers. I don't know if they view Deshaun Jackson in a similar way, but I think he could definitely help in an area where the Packers have been lacking. I think MVS has plenty of speed, obviously, but Deshaun Jackson's on another level as a playmaker and a deep threat. Nagler 2019, nobody wants that. Hello from Portugal. If the Packers extend Breeland's contract, well, what's the role for Kevin King? It's a good question. I think King slides back into being the starter, but not without a little competition if they do indeed bring Breeland back. I don't think either one of those guys is handed a starting gig. I think Jair Alexander has cemented himself, but outside of that, I think everything will be up for grabs, and it'll be very much having to earn it. And I think that's good. Fostering competition across all of your position groups is a good thing. You want more of that, not less. Can you see us packaging both first-round picks to try and get a generational talent, like Nick Bosa? Brandon, I think Nick Bosa is way out of the realm of possibility. He is going to go 1 or 2, most likely. And to get up in that rarefied air, it's going to take a hell of a lot more than the first 2-round picks that the Packers have. And I can't see Gutekunst mortgaging an entire draft class just to go up and get one player. Now, it really depends on how he feels about that player. Maybe he has a strong conviction. I think it's much more likely that if someone falls, the Packers, say past 12, after the Packers have already selected, they use a selection of picks, including that number 30, to jump up and get somebody who they feel is worth it. But I would be absolutely shocked if they got up even to the top 5. Over under King plays 3 games next season. I'm going to take the over because I'm a force for positivity. I'm going to take the over. I believe in him. Do you think we need to draft at the defensive end position this year? Good question, Bach. I would think the draft is strong, supposedly, in that area. And I would think with the number of selections they have, it wouldn't surprise me to see them bring someone in via the draft. King plays if healthy. Well, A, he's got to stay healthy. And B, I don't doubt that he plays. It's just where and how much. I tend to think, yes, he will most likely be the starter over Breeland, but you never know. Breeland comes into camp. Remember, Breeland's playing time this year in Green Bay was after missing an entire offseason and most of the half of a regular season. If Breeland comes into camp and balls out, you're not just going to sit King because he was a draft, or play King because he was a draft pick and the presumptive starter. I believe King is a more talented guy, but that doesn't mean anything, once the pads come on and they're competing. Do you see the piece about Murphy passing on special teams coordinator Darren Rizzi due to cost? Not a good look to be cheap in that area. Nate, I can tell you 100% that that is not the case. I do know that there were factors why the Packers couldn't close that deal. I do know it wasn't because they wouldn't pony up. And that's all I can say about it. Rizzi would have been a great hire, but just wasn't going to happen bringing him to Green Bay. Where did you work before Cheesehead TV? Oh, Seth, many places. I worked at PackersNews.com. I worked at Sports Illustrated. I worked at Bleacher Report. I worked at FanDuel. I worked at Blackstone. I worked on stage as an actor. Worked many places. What are your early expectations for the Packers next year? That they suit up and play games. Way too early. Way too early to be talking about the 2019 season. I'm excited for the new head coach, excited for new system on offense, see what Brian Gutekunst puts together as far as the roster goes, but that's about as far as I'll go, sitting here mid to late January. Let's head over to Twitter, shall we? See what's on the minds of the old tweet machine. Adam starts us off with, can you speculate about the future of Jake Ryan? Adam, I'm always happy to speculate. How likely is it that I will see him in green and gold next season? Whew, I would probably err on the side of not seeing him in green and gold next season, although I don't think it's an impossibility. A lot will depend on how he comes back from the injury and where they view him in regards to Mike Pettine's scheme and where they think they're going. If they continue to be so as multiple as they were this year and playing so many safeties at linebacker spots, et cetera, using so many defensive backs, I'd be surprised if he's back. But you never really know. You never know what their plans are in regards to wanting to keep a thumper like Ryan around. Still has value in that area, obviously. So there's a lot to play out there. But I would suspect he probably moves on. That's just an early guess. Nags asks, Josh, do you think that we will draft another backup quarterback in April, or will LaFleur put effort into developing Kaiser and giving him reps? Good question, Josh. Well, obviously, when it comes to the makeup of the roster, that is Gutekunst's job, and that is his call. And LaFleur will undoubtedly have ideas and will have input, especially when asked. But ultimately, it's up to Gutekunst and how he wants to shape the roster. Do I think that they will select a quarterback in the draft? I have said all year long, it feels like it's a year too early, but you never know. Especially with 2 first-round picks, if there is somebody there that Gutekunst is absolutely sold on, it would not be a surprise to see him take a quarterback in this draft. Now, all that said, I don't see a guy who's going to make a general manager flip his wig and make that call 3 or 4 years down the line, a long-term investment such as that, which is what that kind of selection would be. But you never know. Now, it doesn't even have to be the quote-unquote heir apparent to Aaron Rodgers. It could be as simple as they see a guy in the mid-rounds who they like and can develop, much like they saw in Kaiser when he was coming out. Maybe they make those 2 guys battle it out. Maybe they even dip their toe into the free agent waters and sign a free agent to back up, or at least come in and compete with Kaiser. Because, obviously Kaiser was put into a couple of tough spots this year. It was hard to look at either of those performances and think, yeah, they got something there. Now, again, those were tough spots, both week 1 and week 17, but you'd like to have seen a little bit more out of him, especially as a passer. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. We'll see, who's available when they draft, et cetera, what happens in free agency, and all of that. What are your thoughts on Cole Beasley's statement about the Cowboys brass pushing who gets the ball? Not surprising at all when it's coming out of Dallas. Jerry Jones has got his nose in everything, and how the Cowboys operate in that regard. So, yeah, not surprised whatsoever. The Packers' lack of athletic playmaking, fast linebackers who can cover is setting this defense back more than an edge rusher. Am I crazy to think this? If I'm Green Bay, I'm circling Devin White's name, then address edge, offensive guard, or tight end with number 30, depending on who is there. What say you? Well, Tyler, I think that's one way to look at it. I don't think it's a question that they have lacked a truly explosive athlete in the middle of their defense for quite some time. They had it when they moved Clay inside all those years ago, 2014, what have you. But for whatever reason, they've been really stubborn about keeping him outside for the most part. Now, they have moved him around a little bit. But yeah, Devin White, I think he would be a welcome addition. I know there are a vocal faction of Packer fans who think they don't need Devin White because they have Blake Martinez. I think it really comes down to Mike Pettin and what he wants to do. And I also think that if you're Brian Gutekunst and you think, okay, I know we play a lot of sub, and I know we have a lot of defensive backs on the field, but if you've got a guy like Devin White sitting there at 12 and you think he's a difference maker and the best guy on your board, I don't hesitate. I definitely take him and tell my defensive coordinator, look, I got you a really good football player. I think you can handle trying to figure out how to utilize him. Now, that said, as far as prioritizing it over one position or another, I don't think they work that way. I don't think most NFL clubs work that way. It's much more, especially that first part of the first round, you're up there, hopefully, rarely. Obviously, the Packers have been close to top 10, top 15 now these last 2 years. You don't want to make that a habit. But when you're up there, you want to get the best guy that's there, regardless of position. Because you want to fill your team with the best football players. And now you can quibble about position and position importance. Obviously, the Packers have very much devalued running back, inside linebacker, etc., certain positions over the course of the last decade. But I think if there's a guy there like White, yeah, go get him. Put him on your team. You want as many talented players as you can get, regardless of their positions. That's just my 2 cents. Let's head back over to the live chat here, see what's going on. Nagler, you purport Kenny Clark is an all-world prodigious talent, yet he has accomplished nothing in 3 years in the league. What? Oh, God. People don't even know what they're watching. You don't even know what you're looking at when you say something like that. You type it into the computer, and what world are you living in? He hasn't accomplished anything. Watch the tape. The man is an amazing talent at the defensive tackle spot. And you, for lack of better words, don't know what you're talking about. Kenny Clark is the real deal. He is an excellent football player. He needs a little bit of help around him. But yeah, the idea that he hasn't accomplished anything, what, he hasn't made the Pro Bowl? So what? Oh no, he didn't win this year's beauty contest? He didn't win the popularity contest that is the Pro Bowl? Oh, I'm sorry. So what? Give me a break with that nonsense. What coaching positions are we still needing to hire? They just hired Getsy for the quarterback spot. The big one, the one that sticks out, obviously, as we talked about a little bit ago about Rizzi, is the special teams coordinator. It sounds like they're talking to a couple of assistants from other programs. We'll see. I suspect they're down in Mobile right now for the Senior Bowl. Undoubtedly talking to people, talking to guys on other staffs, etc. I would suspect a hire gets made here in the next, less than a week, the next couple days probably. Meanwhile, they overhype Martinez. Well, I think Martinez is a good player. I don't think he's great. He's definitely an asset and not a hindrance. But, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Will the Packers throw most of their picks on defense? I doubt it, actually. I think you'll see the regular selection of a number of defensive players, no doubt. But you're always getting better or you're always getting worse on both sides of the football. And you can't neglect one side or the other. Otherwise, all of a sudden you turn around and the cupboard is bare. And I think we saw a little bit of that this year. So I think there's no doubt that there are certain positions where they need more help than others. But again, especially earlier in the draft, you want to err on the side of getting the best football players you can, regardless of offense or defense. Super Bowl pick? Oh, good question. God, it's hard to pick against Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, isn't it? But I picked them last year and they got beat by the Eagles. So I don't know, man. I don't know. That's a tough one. I tell you what. I'll make an official pick next week. We're going to have a special Super Bowl Packer transplants next Wednesday, a week from tonight. And then we're going to have our Super Bowl preview, Madden preview after that on Thursday or Friday. So I'll make a pick then, but I will say this. If the defensive front, the front four, specifically Donald, Fowler, and Sue, play as well against the Patriots as they played against the Saints, I'm going to have a hard time seeing the Rams lose that game. But who knows? But those guys, they made short work of a really good offensive line down in New Orleans on the road. Is there a chance they grab Murray because he's best available on the board? Bully, you can't completely dismiss it. I would tend to doubt it, but again, if Brian Gutekunst thinks he's the guy and a all-world talent and a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, absolutely you should pull the trigger. But only Brian Gutekunst can give you that answer, unfortunately. Dwayne, you have no idea what you're talking about. Zero. None. And also, to be clear, I never said Kenny Clark was as good as Aaron Donald. You're making things up there. But he is a very, very good football player, and you have no clue what you're talking about. Patriots know how to exploit weaknesses. The Rams have a lot of weaknesses. That's true, Stewie. That's a fair point, and I think you'll see the smartest coach that we've ever seen in the modern era in Bill Belichick attack those weaknesses. There's no doubt about it. But Sean McVay, he's a pretty damn good coach, young guy. I suspect he'll change things up enough to surprise the Patriots a bit. I thought Belichick did a great job of showing the Chiefs some things on defense that they hadn't expected and or practiced for, and ultimately they paid the price, not being able to get going earlier on offense. But it's going to be a great chess match. There's no doubt about that. Would you like Cole Beasley on the Packers? Seth, I would, actually. I think he's a really interesting talent, good guy in the slot. He's got a lot of burst and suddenness to his game that I think Randall Cobb has lost. And, obviously the price has got to be right. But you look at the wide receiving core in Green Bay, they don't have that type. They don't have that sudden, quick twitch guy. And I'd love it. Rodgers throwing to him on those short little out routes, etc. I'm all for it. Don't feed the Reddit users after 5 p.m. Eastern. Fair point. Belichick is not as smart as Zook. Yikes. Can we just talk about Leroy Butler for a minute? Hall of Fame snub. Dustin, I'm glad you brought that up. It is absolutely preposterous. It is absolutely ridiculous that Leroy Butler is not in the Hall of Fame already. But for him continually not to make the final cut while John Lynch does is patently absurd and only speaks to the Travis Shamockery that is the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I mean, why even have a substantive discussion about it while John Lynch is making the final cut for consideration and or enshrinement, while Leroy Butler can't even get in that conversation, can't even have his case talked about in the room. It's just absurd. It's patently absurd. That's all I got to say about that. Was Butler better than Dawkins? Whew, Michael, that's a good question. Obviously, Eagles fans will tell you one thing, Packers fans will tell you another. I will just say this. I think Butler was more versatile, and I think Butler affected the game overall in a more impactful way. I mean, this story gets told a lot, but it's the truth. In the Super Bowl against the Broncos, Mike Shanahan's offensive game plan was designed completely around taking Leroy Butler out of the game. Not Reggie White, Leroy Butler. That should tell you how effective he was as a player and where his peers, how they regarded him. Again, Dawkins is a supreme talent and he's deserving, but Leroy Butler was a different breed, a more versatile overall player. Lynch is a horrible GM. He can't draft a pass rusher to save his life. Well, that's part of the gig. Matt checking in with the Hundley gum chewing, always good. Butler had a lot of sacks. He did, Stewie. He did indeed. In fact, he was the first defensive back formed at the 2020 club to have a career with 20 interceptions and 20 sacks. First one to ever do it. John Brown in green and gold 2019. Dustin, I was driving that wagon last year. I'm all for it. Again, another guy with speed. I'd probably prefer Brown over Deshaun Jackson myself, but that's just me. I'm all for it. They didn't take a sniff last year, so who knows? We'll see. And he may end up re-signing in Baltimore. So lots to play out yet. All right, I'm going to have to jump. Thank you so much, everyone. Like I said, we'll be back next week with Packer Transplants on Wednesday. I'll be doing Packers Daily on Monday. I'll probably be doing a couple other draft things, some draft content, video, and podcast throughout the latter part of this week. Talking to people down at the Senior Bowl, trying to line that up. So we'll have some more content for you. Enjoy everything we do here at Cheesehead TV. If you do enjoy it, consider pitching in at our Patreon. It's $5 a month to support everything we do. The website, all our videos, everything. Thank you so much, everybody. I'll talk to you soon.